Hello, microphone check 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me? Hello, welcome to Atomic Movie Reviews Film Society. I am your host, Atomicon Rex. Here we discuss films that have a narrative background in aliens, ghosts, robots, and creatures. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. So today we're going to do a deep dive into the UAP phenomenon. I think this is part 2 or 3 of it. This might be part 3, actually, of the deep dive. The last deep dive I did, I talked about skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And this one, the new book, The Initial Revelations of the UAP Phenomenon. I think that's the name of the book by Dr. Lukatsky. So we're going to do a deep dive on that one today. Okay, so let's recap. Let's recap Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. So after I read Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, I went and got the book, Hunt for the Skinwalker at the Skinwalker Ranch. Okay, so I read the government study first, and then I bought the book that the government study was about. Okay, and so I got both of those informations. So this is what the recap is on that. So Skinwalker Ranch, Dulce, New Mexico, and there's another place in Colorado. I can't think of it right now. It's not really popular. It was just barely brought up. But that's a haunted house, right? And so Skinwalker is a haunted house. It's not a base. It's not an underground base in Dulce. It's a haunted house. It's a haunted town. The entire town is haunted. And so it's the same at the Utah Basin. So what they would find in this house, all kinds of Portuguese activity, cows disappearing, cattle mutilations, drained of blood, just weird, bizarre stuff. Okay. Not only that, they would see portals in the sky. Okay, they would bring out their infrared goggles and see various creatures at night that they couldn't see with the naked eye. I'm talking about dog-faced people wearing suits, right? And just a whole plethora of paranormal activity they don't know what to do with, right? So you had dog-faced people in suits waving and talking to people. You have a living darkness, right? That could kind of it was really weird reading this book so the Native Americans have this skinwalker witch ghost legend, okay? And basically the skinwalker could take on a form of an animal, but it's not an animal. It's some sort of witch. That's what they would say. But it could transmorphication into another animal, like vampires, basically like Dracula. How Dracula could turn into a bat, a wolf, those type of things, right? So that's, if you bring Dracula to a Native America, he's going to call it a skinwalker. That's basically what's going on, right? So they're talking about this living darkness. And they try to shoot the living darkness. They try to do things to the living darkness, and it was impenetrable. Like you could throw water on it, it doesn't get wet. You could shoot it doesn't hurt it. You could burn it doesn't burn. Like all kinds of weird. It's basically invulnerable. Like we can't hurt it. Okay, so that's the living darkness that they found out. Another thing that they found out like Ezekiel's will, the angels in Ezekiel's will, the cherubim or whatever you want to call them, that they're angels. Well, they're angels, but the angels are drones. That there's some sort of android, biological, intelligent drone. Okay, so basically, what I realized in reading the book is that these angels or whatever they are, they may have a time displacement device. They may be able to time travel themselves. Like they may not need a machine to get into, like Back to the Future. The time displacement device may be embedded in their chest, basically. So another point that I want to bring up when I'm recapping this is the portals in the sky, which leads to the idea that there are multiple dimensions, or that there's an interdimensional aspect to the phenomenon, where another dimension is entering ours or having an incursion in ours and is able to do whatever they want to our dimension, but we can't do it to theirs, i.e. the afterlife, right? So like we're in the afterlife, and like the people who are the phenomenon that's entering our world and interacting with us, is they're actually alive when we're actually dead. So that's basically what I got from those two books. Okay, that we're kind of trapped in the afterlife. Angels are just robots, and there are portals and haunted houses, and there are vampires. So you put all of these together, and you can reasonably conclude that, yeah, we might be part of the afterlife. That's probably what we're dealing with, and we need to figure out why we're here and how to get out, basically, right? So they dropped this new book, Revelations. I don't have the book up in front of me, so I'm just going to say Revelations of the UFO Phenomenon. I know that's not what it is, but it's along those lines. It's by Dr. Lakowski. It's the follow-up to the Skinwalker Ranch. So you need both books to really understand the phenomenon, to get a good grasp of where the government is going with this. Because I think that's all what we really want to know. So, new information. So the haunted house. So when they were doing research on the haunted house, they would hear a bunch of like rattling and like metal work. Like it sounded like there was a factory underneath the Skinwalker, right? I don't think there's a factory. Okay, I think it's time travel, and that whenever the machine is activated or whatnot, that reality kind of bleeds into our reality. Okay, so you're hearing people hammering away. Someone's actually working at the warehouse. They're just not working at the warehouse at this time, but it bleeds through and has a paranormal activity. Well, it presents itself as a poltergeist activity. That's one way to think about it. Okay, but people at the ranch are gonna be like, no, like we're not just talking about random ghosts walking through walls and stuff like that, right? Because you could reasonably be, I'm sure they thought about that. Okay, but they're like, no, the phenomenon targets us specifically and interacts with us specifically. I'm like, okay, all right, well, that's a little different. Okay, so I still believe that the haunted house is probably where the time travel machine is located. Okay, but after reading the book, okay, so the conclusion that I got from the book, and I'm probably reading in between the lines, but Dr. Lakowski says something about a wonderland in the last book, Revelations. Okay, and I forget, because I didn't buy the book. I just downloaded it online, and I only had like 30 days to read it. I probably can still access it, though, but I just haven't. So it may be a trickster type of element to it. Okay, so where am I going with this? So the time machine, okay, is at Skinwalker Ranch. All right. Now in the book they said Wonderland. Okay. Now this is my argument. Okay, because they said that they're probably time travelers from the future, and they're doing some sort of library school project on looking up their ancestors and the human race and blah 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 blah. Right. And so when he said Wonderland, I was just like, maybe the time machine, this is what I think. I think it's on a Twilight Zone level. I think the phenomenon that we're dealing with is Twilight Zone. Okay, I think there's a time machine in the future. I think there's three of them. Every haunted house probably has a time machine. But the time machine is at an arcade, okay, where kids have access to it. It's not like some deep state NASA buried in, the mountains, like we would have a time machine. They're so advanced that their time machine is just a toy. Okay. And the reason I believe that is because, one, there is an element of time travel in the phenomenon with prophecies and like the tic tac teleporting from one place to another and doing this before like we were able to even understand how we were going to respond. Like it responded before we were able to respond to what it was doing. All right. And so I think that leads to the notion that this might be some sort of time travel technology, but it's used by children. And that's where the trickster element comes in. Okay, because there's just a lot in Skinwalker Ranch, there's just a lot of bizarre paranormal activity. Like the salt would be found into the pepper into the salt, or she will come home, she'll take all the groceries out and put them into the refrigerator just to go use the restroom, come back out, and then now all the groceries are out of the refrigerator, placed back into the bag. Or any combination of weird trickster-like elements, okay? But nobody really gets harmed. Now, I'm only talking about the phenomenon at Skinwalker Ranch, okay? And so another thing, they're talking about time travel, which led me to believe in time travel, is the redshift effect. Okay, so, I don't know if you went to college, but when I was going to college, you have to take astrology class. And these astrology classes, now this is very basic, elementary astrology. Okay, so don't quote me on this. I don't want to hear it. Okay, I'm just giving you the basics. All right, so basically, if a star is moving from you, it appears red. And if a star is moving towards you, it appears blue. Okay, how does that apply to the time travel mechanism? I think that the drones have a time travel device embedded into them that they don't have to get in a machine. They could time travel themselves. Okay, so when you see an orb or a ghost or whatever you want to call it turn blue, it's because they're moving forward through time. Okay, and when you see the red orb turn red, it's moving backwards in time. Okay, and so what these things do, like if it runs through your body, okay, and your arm atrophies, basically just dissolves or just basically rots, because that's kind of what happened. You come down with some weird form of cancer. It's going inside your body, taking your arm and altering the time. Okay, so your arm just withers away, like right then. You call it cancer, okay, but it's really some sort of time traveling weapon. That's my opinion. This is why. Okay, so there's this guy named David Grush. He's the one who came out and revealed that there was, UFO crash retrieval programs and everything. And he tells the Senate this, okay? And then the Senate asked him, well, has anybody been hurt over the UFO phenomenon? And his response was like, yeah, I know a couple people who's been hurt. And he responds, he says, my wife has seen some very disturbing things. Okay? And so a lot of people are like, what does your wife have to do with it? Is she like a secret agent as well? Is she part of the CIA? Is she part of the DIA or the DHS? Is she part of that? And no. So this is what I think happened. Okay. I think David Grush is Axelrod, the alias, the mysterious person that they keep talking about in these books. I think that's David Grush. Okay. I think Dr. Lukaski brought him into that skiff and told him that it was time traveling gods from another dimension. That's what I think he said. Okay. Time traveling gods from another dimension. I think that's what Lukaski told him. So he leaves the skiff, all right, and then flies back home. That night, his child, that night, the person in the book, Axelrod, okay, I'm not saying David Grush, I'm saying Axelrod, leaves the skiff, flies back home. Well, I'm going to assume it was in like Florida or somewhere. I don't really remember. Okay, and his son comes under demonic possession. Now listen, this is the key. This is the clue. Okay, it happened instantly after he left the skiff. Okay, so I think he got the phone call from his wife saying that something was wrong with the son. Okay, now the kid would not wake up. Okay, he was going through some shit that you will only see in an Exorcist movie. Okay, but the mother could not wake him up. Okay, so what happened? Whoever read him into it, okay, the people from the future see him as an enemy combatant. Okay, they pulled some Hamas shit, kidnapped his kid, took his kid to the future, tortured him, and then brought him back. I'm going to let that sit there. And that's what they mean about security clearance and keeping the information. It's not China or Russia. They're not trying to keep the information away from China or Russia. It's a secret because of the people in the future. We're at war with people in the future. So it's kind of basically, Tenet is real. I don't know if you've seen the movie Tenet, but the movie Tenet's real. Okay, so basically the movie Tenet, it's about time travel, right? Somebody in the future creates a device that can basically turn back the hands of time of the whole world. And so there's a global flooding coming, right? Because of global warming. So basically, what's going to happen? The world's going to get flooded because the ice caps are going to melt. It's an environmental movie. So the ice caps are going to melt. The entire world floods. Okay. So this lady creates this time device, and it's kind of basically you have a candle, right? And it's burning on both ends. And hypothetically, you have the apocalypse somewhere on this timeline of the candle. Okay? You have the people from our present time trying to push back the apocalypse as far as possible. But you have the people from the future trying to send back the apocalypse as far as possible. So there's no stopping the apocalypse. Okay? It's just that who's going to experience it? The ones in the past or the ones in the future? And so that's basically what the fight is about. There's a lot of timely-wimely, wibbly-wobbly bullcrap, but that's basically it. They're passing the apocalypse between timelines. And I think that's what's going on here. I think there's a definitely point where there is a apocalyptic event. There's a black swan event coming that changes everything. The people in the future are trying to push that back to our time. And then our people are trying to push that forward into their time. They don't care if our children have to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with the apocalypse. If my great-great-great-grandchildren have to deal with it, so be it. Okay, but I like playing video games and and watching movies and shit. I'm not trying to deal with no global flood. So that I think that's pretty much what the skiff was about. That we are at war with people from the future. Atomicon Rex out.